This has transformed my life. This video did so much for me, mostly because a lot of it was based on Baldwin. I am a tragic optimist. I have been practicing tragic optimism throughout my med school journey and is actually what is carrying me through till now. Today, I found out what tragic optimism is. The whole concept of tragic optimism is leaning on the fact that suffering is inevitable, joy is inevitable. I get to be in the nihilism of it all and the fact that nothing makes sense and the world is going to doom. And I can stay in those experiences and witness them and find joy and moments of solace in those experiences, because at the same time, life is beautiful in nihilism and in absurdity. I was talking about it to a friend, and I'm talking about how, in a lot of ways, tragic optimism, the idea that I can realize that the world is going into nihilist chaos and that nothing matters. This video just changed so much for me today. I'm going to link it in the description because it does so much and it talks about so much, and what I ended up understanding is so much of tragic optimism, which is grounded in philosophy of, I think, Viktor Frankl is his name. This lady does such an amazing job. That video, I might watch that video once a month. It broke my brain. It was so good. I noticed a lot of it is grounded in Buddhist philosophy and yoga philosophy. What some people don't know is that I've been studying yoga throughout the course of my time in medical school, and actually before I came back to medical school, I did yoga teacher training. I have been guided by yoga philosophy and yoga ways of thinking and understanding in Asian teachings that lends itself to spirituality, which I'm not necessarily comfortable with, because so much of spirituality and those philosophies in many ways are used to justify the suffering of folks of color, and then there's this depoliticization of the way that it's used. So for example, the noble truth about suffering and that suffering is inevitable is often used by folks who spiritually bypass racism and a lot of liberal circles to kind of justify that everything that is can be used and repurposed. I accept that. And at the same time, suffering is inevitable. And that's something I've been with. And what I took from that video is that tragic nihilism requires a deep degree of self-trust, a deep degree of self-understanding. It also has components of resilience. The thesis and the takeaway from this video is that tragic optimism requires mindfulness. Mindfulness tells me that this moment, suffering is inevitable, and also joy is inevitable. And I've always been an absurdist. Someone said this to me back in my first year of med school, that I was an absurdist, and I've always been an absurdist. I've never quite labeled things as this or that, or lent myself to philosophical values or philosophical ideas, but I practice them and I live them. The concept of stoicism, that's something I've always practiced but never quite labeled. I find that I have an aversion to intellectualizing the human experience rather than being in my body and feeling it. This video did so much for me, mostly because a lot of it was based on Baldwin. And I now realize that Baldwin must have also learned Buddhist philosophy. Tragic optimism says, I experience suffering, I experience nihilism. I get to be mindful in the suffering, I get to be mindful in the joy, because one makes the other possible. It is because I experience suffering that I can appreciate joy. It is because I experience joy that I can appreciate suffering. And in being mindful, I pay these moments the respect they deserve, because I'm fully present in my suffering, knowing that I've experienced joy that I was fully present for, and that the suffering will not last and it will come around. Resilience is another tenet she talks about in this video. She talks about resilience and she talks about acceptance. Understanding that in mindfulness, I'm not grasping onto joy because joy has now left me, and I'm not averting myself from grief or sadness because it is here to stay. And I don't resist it, because when I resist it, it persists. It continues to show up, which is another thing a teacher of mine, Blair, said, is what I resist persists. This has transformed my life. Finding terms and names that these things are called is really nice. I've been practicing it. I prefer to just live the thing, and when I put a tag on it or a label on it, it somehow feels like I'm intellectualizing, which is something I need to work through, because there's value in intellectualizing. That's what she did this morning. She was able to describe this thing that I've felt so deeply. I have so many comments on her channel. It's a beautiful video. I highly recommend everybody go watch it. It gave me so much this morning. It's going to be the basis for how I form the next stories that I'm going to tell on my dismissal, because my story is one of tragic optimism, is what I'm realizing. Yeah.